Hello, everyone. This is Corey Doggs of Action Coach Business Coaching, and today I'm excited to have Marc Case, founder and president of BDPros, with us today. Marc has 25 plus years of B2B sales, marketing, and leadership experience, and he founded BDPros almost 15 years ago. BDPros provides business development, marketing, and operational support for B2B companies throughout the United States, and he'll tell us more about that shortly. Something unique about Marc. Before he got focused on his career in business, he played in cover bands. Gotta ask, what instrument or instruments?
Well, I mean, I started in piano because my parents made me, but over time I learned some guitar and bass, just enough to play some Jesse's Girl and make everybody happy at the state fair.
All right, I was just gonna add next question. What is the go-to song that you played to get the crowd
Well,
rolling?
it wasn't that I necessarily wanted to, but we wound up for whatever reason during that period in time playing a lot of Jesse's Girl. It was,
This is good.
Rick Springfield tune.
Okay.
And, we decided to do it to close the show one night and people just, for whatever reason, that was the tune. I'm like, all
All
right, we
right.
had all kinds of other things, but I guess we're doing Rick Springfield again. Let's go.
Oh, that's fun. All right, his favorite thing to do in his downtime is hang out with his friends and family. And something he's very proud of is just how his team has continued to evolve and grow to meet the challenges in their industry. So with that intro, it's my pleasure to welcome Marc to the show today.
Yeah, thanks very much.
All right, now we get to dive in. First question, tell us a little bit more about just your personal journey, kind of
Sure.
where you grew up and how you landed here today.
Yeah, my family, I mean, we grew up on the East Coast. My dad, I mean, we're not really Army brats or anything, but I guess I'm a corporate brat because, as he was, taking us through his journey, 5 kids, he would move around and get, bigger promotions and jobs back in the day. So I originally was born in Pennsylvania, moved around New York, upstate, outside of Boston. We finally wound up in Antioch, Illinois for high school for me,
Mhm.
which led me to go to Marquette in Milwaukee. I kind of at the time had the choice of that or Northwestern, and for whatever reason, Milwaukee seemed like a good town. And I pretty much have lived here ever since. So it's 30 some odd years of living in Milwaukee after all that bouncing around as a kid. So it was, yeah, interesting. And, I had some jobs right after college that would travel, a lot of outside sales rep travel, but everywhere I went, I mean, I like Milwaukee and made it my home.
All right, thank you. How did you get where you are now professionally? And then the second part of that question is how do you decide to start the business?
Yeah, so professionally, I mean, I started a lawn mowing business when I was a kid, and I've watched a lot of these types of interviews, and I mean, we're common. I wanted to make some extra money. We didn't really get allowances in my house. You just took care of things, so that's
Mhm.
part of it. So I was maybe 12 and started doing that. I actually hired some friends of mine to lawn mow with me for a while, so it was kind of a budding entrepreneur until I went to the house one day to check in on them, and they undercut me. So
Mhm.
I think I was charging maybe $4 or $5 an hour, and they said they do it for 2 or 3.
Your
Uh,
friends?
yeah, yep. They went direct to the source, and I think the guy's name is Tierney. I don't know, but he's like, "Well, Mark, that's business." I'm like, "So whatever." Anyway, move on down the line. I always had an interest in that. My dad was an entrepreneur, and then he worked corporate because being an entrepreneur is tough with 5 kids. They owned a couple restaurants when we were growing up. We learned a lot of that. But I always had that back in my mind. So when I went to college, I think one year I worked as a teller at a bank, and I'd worked in retail before that, in high school. But I saw an opportunity to work with College Pro franchise. A lot of my friends were getting internships, and for whatever reason, I saw the flyer and I thought, run my own business. Sure, that makes sense to me. I did pretty well for a couple of years. So that was always there. And then, I had actually someone I ran into in my third year after I stopped doing College Pro, and he said I should drop out of college and start my own painting company. And he would give me first crack at a couple of subdivisions he was building in Northern Illinois. It was a huge opportunity. He said, you're not going to necessarily just get it, but I'd painted his house and a few others. And it was a big decision. And at the time, my dad was still around and we talked about it. And I was only a year or so away from graduating. So decided to push through and graduate, which I think is a great decision for me personally. Excuse me. And from there, I wound up, getting a job in B2B sales and then direct marketing and then online advertising in the late 90s. And then in a local publication here in Milwaukee as a director of, well, not initially director, but eventually director of advertising, selling branding and stuff like that. And then that led to me starting a marketing company with a business partner before I started this, and then this. So it's kind of always sort of been there in my
Mhm.
life. Even when I got the degree, I was always thinking of, I want to start my own thing. And even the boss I had at the local publication, when he hired me, part of the reason I wanted the job is they were talking about expanding their publication into Madison and Northern Illinois, and I wanted to be a part of something growing and maybe get a piece of the business and blah, blah, blah. So
Mhm.
yeah, sort of always been in the blood, I guess.
All right. Next question is has to do with leadership. There's lots of different leadership styles out there, and leadership's important.
Yeah.
How would you describe your leadership style?
I would say it's evolved, but it's always been sort of process based, but people focused. We talk about it a lot around here, especially in B2B sales and marketing and operations. We have to have like a playbook. You have to have a go-to. You have to have
Mhm.
scripts and things. But I don't want you, like an actor, I don't want you on script. I want you to be you. So trying to help people figure out how to be them and get results and sell and make money for ourselves and clients. I mean, that's an interesting balance. So I think, firm but fair is an old school thing, and certainly I don't know how you're, but I was raised in the 70s and 80s. They didn't really, I mean, they cared, but they didn't really show you the same way they care about people.
Right. Yeah.
So I think the evolution for me has been going from a hard-nosed manager to someone who's more like, be firm on the process and, be softer on the people, try to, so I guess that's it. Process kind of based, but people focused, or whichever way you want to say it.
Yeah. It seems like emotional intelligence wasn't a thing in the 70s and 80s.
Well, the truth of it is, I think it always existed. I just thought they were supposed to ignore it,
Yeah.
you know,
True. Yeah.
unless you're selling somebody something. That's kind of what they taught you, and it's just really weird. And now,
Mhm.
I mean, because I always felt connected to people. I think if you're in sales or leadership, you have to be. I was a middle child too. I still am it. So
Right.
you're always solving problems. But yeah, it's funny how things do change.
Mhm. All right. Now tell us about BD Pros. Tell us more about kind of who you work with, what you do.
Yeah. Well, given my background being B2B marketing, sales, advertising, and having to figure out operations along the way with CRM systems and stuff, BD Pros is kind of just a natural extension of my own personal journey, I think. And over 15 years, 14 years, I mean, we continue to add things and grow. I think of us now as a general contractor of business development for our clients. There's a lot of lead gen firms and marketing firms and all kinds of things, and some look like us and some don't. But I think, our thing is basically trying to be everything you would want out of a sales team, and, maybe you can't afford to hire 6 people or 5 or whatever, but we can kind of be the sort of Swiss Army knife and figure out some of that stuff. So our clients are all B2B. They all have the same challenges that any company has trying to sell and market their products. Again, as a general contractor of business development, I think we're also trying to be, tech forward and learn and experiment on ourselves in safe spaces with things like GPT and AI and phone burners and parallel dialers and offshoring. Like there's so many things that you could do, but trying to keep your mind wrapped around B2B brands and all that kind of stuff is interesting. So we were already national, but COVID kind of gave us even further of a national footprint because during that period in time, a lot of people weren't keeping people around. They weren't investing as much in sales and marketing, some, but the ones who saw an opportunity, we were able to kind of grow with. And at this point now, we've got some clients even in Canada, Mexico. We're working with someone out of Europe right now who wants to come to market in the US. So
Mhm.
it's interesting, but the core principles kind of remain the same no matter.
So when it comes to getting clients, the first thing that has to happen is marketing. You need to get people interested, right? Get them to
Yeah,
raise their hand.
yeah.
And then you get them into the sales process, the funnel, and then get them down to either saying yes or no.
Yeah,
So,
I could balance that by saying it could be sales first, just
Mhm.
because a lot of people can't afford marketing. And back in the day, I would say, if I had a $50,000 a year budget, I'd start with a salesman because you don't have enough money for 50 grand to market anything. And I mean, that's just a broad, big
Yeah.
statement. But you're not going to beat Apple with Mark Phone, be with a $50,000 budget. So, because it's B2B, I feel confident that you can kind of begin by even picking up phones or doing LinkedIn or going to trade shows. There's a lot of one-to-one things you can do that have huge payoff when someone starts to buy. Where marketing, it's sometimes difficult. It's very crowded. Everybody, especially with social media and stuff, everyone thinks they're a marketer, everyone's a brand, everyone's an influencer, so
Mhm.
yep, me too. But I think a salesperson can also help, pierce through with that. Because as I would say to any client back in the day and now, I'm like, if you can afford it all, you do it all, and if you could afford what you
Right.
said, yeah, you start with marketing because you could do a lot of things. But I mean, most people that, at least the people we represent, they don't have $1 million budgets for marketing to try to figure that out. And, you could waste a lot of money real fast if you're not careful. That's, again, neither here nor there.
So with your model, then, do you do the selling for your clients or sales management or all the above?
We probably have strategy baked into everything we do, but we're not really, we don't really sell strategy as much. We're doers, and we've got
Okay.
some experienced people here. We've got 20, 30 years of sales experience or marketing or operations. And that's, as I say, we're more general contractors. We also subcontract some things because there's a lot of freelance marketers out there who don't
Mhm.
want to be employed. They'd rather do project work. And that's great. If we need to do social media or email campaigns or like things for trade shows, there's a lot of that. But we do have an experienced marketing director on staff to help kind of move that stuff all the way through.
Right. And then, who's your ideal client? Like what size company, what is there niches or trade, trades,
Yeah,
et cetera?
I mean, we've done a lot over the years, but I would say, I mean, in the bell curve, it's probably 1 to 20 million. We do work with Rockwell right now, but their
Mhm.
division that we work with, if they parsed it out, is probably 20 million-ish. I mean, they're a some odd $1 billion company. We got
Yeah.
a few like that. But if we play with them, we're not, going to the C-suite and explaining how to run Rockwell. You know,
Right. Right.
we're more probably
Mhm.
supporting some product line or service entity and things like that. So, we've done work with creative services firms, IT companies, coaches, banks,
Mhm.
manufacturing, distribution. Lately, in the last few years, we've had a lot stronger focus on manufacturing and distribution because we have reps who've got 15, 20 years, and we've got good processes that support that. So, I mean, there's a lot going on there, but we're open with anybody who, generally speaking, has been in business for over 5 years, over $1 million in sales, has hired a
Mhm.
salesperson before, because
Yeah.
that's a big one. I mean, if they've
Mhm.
never hired a salesperson before, everything looks like, an expense. If
Yeah.
they've hired a salesperson before, we should look like at least as good as that, if not better or more consistent. But a lot of people in our space don't understand how long this can take, if it even happens at all for them, because their product fit could not be correct and all those kinds of things. So
Okay. All right. Next question. When did you realize you had the confidence that you could just start this thing and run it and do your own thing?
probably when I was 5.
Yeah.
That's just,
So waiting for the
I don't
right
know.
thing.
I mean, obviously we all have insecurities and imposter syndrome and all that from time to time, but I've always had a pretty strong sense of self. And I think part of that's how I was raised and moving around a lot. Some of my family members, maybe they shrunk a little bit, but I got bigger, like mentally,
Mhm.
maybe because you have to invent yourself and you have to kind of, and
Mhm.
for maybe that also created this desire to want to do something by myself. I don't know, man. I don't want to talk to therapy right now, but it's,
Right.
I never like confidence wasn't a really difficult thing. It was just more of a, your confidence gets shaken doing this for sure. That
Mhm.
you think you know something, and I don't think when I started I knew everything. I didn't think that at all. I was already in my 30s by then. I knew I wasn't 18 anymore.
Mhm.
But yeah, you definitely have to have a super strong sense of self to keep going because there are certainly times here. Uh, a lot of people advise me to take a knee and just get a job.
Yeah. But that's not how you're wired.
No, I mean, I
Mhm.
could. I mean, if I
Yeah.
had wound up having kids or something else happened, I probably would have just taken the job and tried to climb. And, I feel confident I would do very well. I mean, the first few years I did this, I got all kinds of job offers. People didn't want to use BD pros, but,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just a different kind of a calling, I guess.
Okay. So if you could rewind and go back to the beginning of your career in the time machine, what would you do differently or change, if anything?
That is really hard to say. I was looking at that question,
Mhm.
I don't know, a few weeks ago. Someone else had asked me something similar, and you try to come up with something clever. I think one thing that would have been really helpful for me is patience.
Mhm.
But I don't know if I had patience if I would have done it.
Right.
That's why it's so hard to pull apart. I mean, I'm old enough now to see that and realize that it's all my parents would try to say it all comes together. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then you just keep grinding. But
Yeah.
that grind, maybe it helped me get there, but it was also very taxing, for personal relationships and, people
Mhm.
I worked with, because you're just, sometimes it just comes in its own time. So I think patience would be the big thing, is just, keep working hard, but like, just relax a little bit.
Mhm.
It's hopefully going to come to you. And if it doesn't, there's the other weird thing about getting older, then you'll figure out something else.
Trust the journey, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, I mean, the last part of that, and this is where the spice comes in, is that when you're raised in the 70s and 80s, that's not what they say. They
No,
didn't say
not at all.
patience. That's not what the movies said. That's not what anything said. And when you're in B2B sales or sales of any kind and you're quota based, and if you miss your quota, you get fired no matter what you do, that doesn't sound like patience to me either. So
Right.
if I'm going to
Mhm.
lose my job by not grinding, there's a lot of things along the way that it's a whole thing. Like, it takes a village to kind of get through all of it. But if I would trust me now, then I don't know if I would. It's just like, it's going to come
Mhm.
to you. Just keep grinding. You're going to be okay. You don't need to freak out, all that stuff.
Okay, so you're a business owner, president, CEO, founder. A lot of people who have never sat in that role or have been in those shoes have common myths about or misconceptions about what it's like to own a business. Is there any myths out there that you want to dispel?
I think a lot of people talk about this, and I've made my own comment. Like, depends. Like, if you haven't owned a business before, you probably think that all business owners make a lot of money and they don't do much, or they think that you inherited it, or that your father or your mother started it, or your uncle or your dad gave you a tiny loan of $1 million or $2 and you just had a, those
Mhm.
things are not, I mean, at least for me, none of those things are true. I'm doing well. If I had chosen a different path, I'd probably be making more. Could be
Mhm.
probably even retired by now. And I don't know that, I don't know that's what I thought was going to happen when I started it. And I don't know if I really cared so much. I did have a good mentor in my father who basically said, you make this decision now, it's probably at least 1 million or two to your 401k, if you just keep on the other path. And he's like, maybe you'll make it up. You're smart enough, you work hard, but man, can,
Mhm.
anything can happen. So yeah, I think that's it. I'd like to just think that it's, either been given to you or something else, or you don't, work a lot. And as we've talked about too, I mean, there are certainly pockets, and I could choose not to work a ton now, but then there's moments where you don't get to choose and you just have to. So it's just kind of, so it's a little different than anyone would think if they haven't done this before.
All right. So now you've learned a lot on your journey and continue to learn. So any interesting insights or insight that you've learned or advice you've gotten recently that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I don't know how it floated up. Maybe it's just the universe talking. I don't know who said it first, but I've been really focused on this concept lately of being firm on the process and soft on the people. I think
Mhm.
it's just counterintuitive to how I was raised. And again, not bad, but that's just go get it done. You walk it off. All those old school things. And now, the fear that I had for a long time is if you walk away from a firm policy with people and a firm, kind of personality, that you would not succeed. And lately, maybe it's just timing. Maybe I've found better people, maybe better process, maybe better me. I don't, there's a lot of things. But lately I've been finding that, if we're on the same team and we're pulling up the same data and we start talking about, hey, look, we both know that we got to do this, instead of like, you mess this up, it's a subtle thing. And I'm really trying to put it into
Mhm.
practice every day with people. And I think it's making a difference. At least the temperature is different, when crisis happens, because it's going to happen when a client's not happy or something else. We try to take a few steps back and not get into the dog fight and the debate, try to get into analysis and process and where is it broken, and then try to give it a little bit of room to breathe, because you can still get a lot done in 5 minutes. You don't have to do it right now or even 5 days. So yeah,
Mhm.
firm on the process, softer on the people, I think is the one I'm really trying to embody lately.
Okay, I kind of feel that's a theme. I've heard that several times now from you. So,
Yeah, it's just, like I said, I'm getting brainwashed by somebody, or I need to be retrained, so it's just trying to keep that kind of the mantra, if you want, because it can get, especially, I mean, every industry has its challenges, but this one can get tough. Right now, it's not easy to sell. And I'm not going to blame economy and stuff. I know in B2B, that's our job. But yeah, everyone is talking about it's a little tighter this year, for all kinds of reasons.
all right. What's something new that you'd like to learn outside of work?
So brand new, I don't know. Revive, I've been working on cooking again a lot at home because there's an art to that and there's a science to that, which is good. I've been playing golf more, same.
Mhm.
And then some music, like more music production, those are all limitless, infinite challenges. You can always get better and worse. And I think that's like good to get outside of just the businessy stuff and like be a beginner or I got to clean it up again because my body's not the same as it was 30 years ago and my mind's not the same and all kinds of things. So it's kind of like you're restoring a car. I think we were talking about that before, like
Yeah.
restoring myself to something, but with a different mind. Like I don't look at it the same way, but like I just got to cook this and go on to work, or I just got to bang out this song so we can play the next, whatever. It's take your time and really kind of enjoy the journey of that, and also try to become as good as you can be with that. So those are fun things to kind of slap you back to, like, I wouldn't say I'm a guru expert in business development, but I've got a lot that I know and that we can do. Some of these areas, I have a lot of space to go. So it's nice to kind of get back to an earlier stage and remember how you have to kind of learn those things.
Do you still pick up the guitars?
I do. I've sold a lot of the more fun and expensive ones because any musician will tell you that they probably went into debt to get the cool stuff. I did the same thing. And at some point I had to sell them to survive, not survive, but to pay bills and stuff. Cause you're no longer playing out. But I kept an acoustic, I kept a keyboard. I kept some recording equipment. So those things are simple just to kind of put in your hands. But like my skill set is severely diminished. I was never great. I was good enough, good enough to walk by at State Fair and spend a couple minutes, listen to Neil Diamond or something or whatever we were doing that day, and then, move on. But yeah, it's good to do that.
All right. Thinking about the next 1 to 3 years, what's the number one area of growth and development you see?
Well, as it relates to this business, it's about letting go and letting other people take over. Not everything, but I've been trying to, delegate myself out. As an example, I'm not really in sales anymore. If they need me, they can have me talk to people. I don't really talk to clients a whole lot. It's been a few years since I actually ran client strategy directly. So, this next part is kind of moving into the operational growth, kind of repeatable, transferable, structural things. I've always thought about that. We've taken leaps. There are certain pockets of leap. But I think this group has, this team, I should say at this point now, has the potential to take us to another level. And I need to figure out, what those, whether it be through finance or partnerships, and I'm working on those things right now. But really, it's kind of like leaving the shore and making sure that, I'm still checking in and giving what they need to do. I still probably spend at least 20, 30 hours a week in the office or with people here, but trying to get outside of that and just see it from, the higher perspective. I've got a really good vision of it, I think, but now it's just trust and verify, but trust that they're going to, do the things we hired them to do.
What do you see as being your number one challenge? I think maybe you alluded to that a little bit there, but
yeah, the number one challenge is me.
Yeah.
Is, the thing, like all these new things, trust but verify, firm on the process, something like that. You got to keep growing personally to let them grow. And not freak out. I'll send emails sometimes over to people. I'm like, I apologize for asking this again, but I feel like it's my responsibility to, and I usually find out that not only do they have an answer for that, but they have 7 more that you didn't think of.
Right.
Also, in this transition, there are times when I ask simple questions that someone forgot. So we're not there, but what I'm trying to, with myself, also say is, well, just because you found the mistake doesn't mean you can't trust people. So, but I still have to look like I'm the pilot. I'm in charge of all these souls. And, if I think that screw is loose, I have to do it. Even if they did it right 100 times, it's a part of my check down and, maybe they forgot, because that'll happen here too, where, someone does it right for a while, maybe a year or two.
Well, interesting on that, like process, right? Systems. They're the backbone of any business, right?
Yeah.
But you can't set them and forget it, because as you grow and the business grows, the systems will need to evolve also. And the law of entropy kicks in. We've got systems, but I'm a human. So sometimes I don't follow them as well as I should, even though I should.
Well, I think that's the part that, part of it's better hiring, part of it's luck, because in the last couple of years, at least for us, it seemed that there are a lot more experienced, available talent. For a middle period there, we wound up having to hire less experienced people. Maybe it was also we didn't have the budget for some of these things, or I didn't think that we needed to go that far up the chain. So some of this investment in people is paying off also, because once we show them, like, I think one of my people here says it's an opt-in program. If you're an adult, you know what that means. When we were taking on some people who were straight out of school, or maybe only a few years out, but part of their first experience was working remote, and flexible and Zoom, but they really don't have any experience, don't really have, skills or work ethic to the same degree. Those things were very difficult to try to get through. And I think at this point now, you can trust that some of these people, if you do put the systems in place, and if they forget or they mess up, we can fix that. We don't have to like go back and reprimand. It's more like, look, I saw this, and usually what'll happen is they'll, raise their hand, hey, my fault. And the thing I've been trying to say lately is like, you can say your fault, but it's just your accountability. I'm like, we're trying, again, soften the language. I'm like, I don't need anyone to beat themselves up over this. It's your accountability. You're on that wall. But for now, because we've seen this leak, all I'm going to do, it's not a punishment. It's just, I'm going to look weekly now with you. And if I see something that's, messy, just forgive me for asking. I trust you. I trust you're going to do it, but we all make mistakes. And that, even saying that phrase feels weird to me sometimes, the way that happens phrase, because that's not how they said it back in the day. It's not even close. But I feel like it works better, and you give people a lot of room, because it's just, at the end of it, we're passionate about what we do, but it's just a job. Most people, the most important thing isn't going to be this, another revelation over time. They got families, you get the same, like, I want to go home and hang out, so let's get serious. Let's play like a pro game, but like, let's not like emotionally be wrapped around in this little mistake. But yeah, sometimes the client's going to leave us because we made a dumb mistake. We'll do what we can. We're not going to repeat them if we can't. But if someone gets that hot about it, I'm no longer going to, try to bend over backwards to cool them off. Like, you got to understand, it's a human business too. Things are going to happen. So that's it.
Okay. All right. Last question before we'll move to some shout outs and wrap up. What advice do you have for business owners who are trying to do it all on their own?
You're not alone. So, no matter what you think, there's a lot of people around you right now, even if you think you're alone, that are also riding your journey. They're also riding your joy, or your paranoia, or your fear, or your animosity, or your anger, so there's very, 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 I can't think of one person, because I thought I was a lone wolf for a long time too. The truth is, you're never, generally speaking, you're just really not alone, whether it's people or friends or something else. So yeah, know that you got people that you can lean on, or at least that they're there. But the other part of it, you're not alone, is like, you are affecting people, and this can be very, like, it can destroy people, it can really mess with your mind. And unfortunately, that could be bad things for your relationships too. And, excuse me, everything happens for a reason kind of stuff. But I know that certain relationships along the way, I don't have anymore. And part of it's because of that idea that, well, I gotta, and, maybe it was good that they fell off. I don't know, but I just know that that part could have been tended to a little bit better.
All right. Now it's shout out time. Obviously, you've had a phenomenal, fun, stressful journey that goes with any entrepreneurial journey. And I'm sure you've been blessed with and currently have some great people that have helped you. So shout out time. Anybody you want to throw a shout out to?
Well, my parents both passed away in the last few years, so it has to start with them, and also my family, and a few people who work with us right now, plus clients. I'm not going to name them all by name right now, because I wouldn't want to miss somebody, but every one of them has contributed, even if they don't work with us anymore. And I tried to say a long time ago, once a pro, always a pro, as a BD pro, and some of those relationships still exist and some don't anymore, business wise, for all the reasons. But regardless of how those things ended one way or another, every part of that is, a part of our journey, and we're thankful for it. And I hope that they would at some point look back and see the same thing, whether it be clients, family, friends, all that kind of stuff. So.
All right. Now, how can someone reach out to learn more about BD Pros?
Yeah, we primarily we have our own website, www.bdpros.com. We have a pretty significant presence on LinkedIn, not crazy. Those are the main channels. From there, you can see some of the posting, you see some of the people we've worked with. We've celebrated some anniversaries recently here, and you can learn about like a lot of the players who actually kind of do the work and make sure and keep the promises and all that. So that would be the best place to do it, I would say.
Thank you. All right. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you today, Mark, and thanks for being on the show.
All right. Thanks for your time.